If you're a fan of my channel, you already know I adore this game. We recently did a full playthrough, and I've been releasing the no commentary runs of each section. But let me be honest with you. The first time I played Kuon, I had no idea what was going on. The story felt cryptic, the imagery overwhelming, and the cultural context was completely outside what I was familiar with. And that's the point. Kuon isn't just another survival horror game. It's a window into Japan's oldest and darkest myths. To really understand why it's so unsettling, you have to step outside the mechanics and into the folklore that inspired it. That's exactly what this channel is designed to do, to peel back the layers of horror games and explore the cultural roots behind them. So today, let's dive into the world that Kuon draws from, and see how FromSoftware crafted one of the most haunting digital folktales of the PlayStation 2 era. Kuon's setting is in the Heian period, running from 794 to 1185. This was a time shaped heavily by art, literature, and most importantly for our story, spirituality. Court nobles and commoners alike lived with the constant presence of superstition and ritual. The game reflects this atmosphere perfectly. Even its structure mirrors the era. The yin and yang phases aren't just clever chapter titles, but thematic nods to a worldview built around balance, duality, and cosmic order. Exorcisms, for instance, weren't fringe ideas, they were common practice. Illness, misfortune, or even political failures were often explained as a work of restless spirits. Rituals of purification weren't seen as strange, they were survival. Think about the mulberry tree ritual in the game. To us, it might feel like an absurd superstition, something we dismiss the way we roll our eyes at the cult sacrifices in films like Hell House LLC, which we also recently started watching. I don't like them. Yeah. But in Heian Japan, this sort of ritual would have carried real weight, seen as a legitimate way to ward off disaster or restore balance. Kuon uses this mindset as its foundation, rooting its horror in a time when ritual and superstition weren't fantasy. They were just a daily reality. This is where we step directly into the spiritual framework of the game. The world of Kuon revolves around onmyōdō, or the way of yin and yang. Onmyōdō was a system of divination, cosmology, and magic that blended Taoist principles, Chinese elemental theory, Buddhism, and Shinto traditions. Its practitioners, the onmyōji, served as court sorcerers, exorcists, and spiritual advisors. Long ago in Japan, there were mysterious men called onmyōji. They read the stars, made calendars, and used spells to protect people from bad luck and evil spirits. Some said they could even talk with hidden spirits and control unseen powers. They were part advisor, part healer, and part magician. Emperors asked for their guidance, and ordinary people hoped for their protection. Even if you never heard of it before, you felt its presence in the game. When you start, you choose between the yin and yang phases. In the yin phase, you play as Utsuki, a girl searching for her sister Korea. This past represents death, darkness, and grief. And fittingly, Korea herself becomes one of the central antagonists. Yin here isn't just a label, it's a descent into decay. In the yang phase, you play as Sakura, an exorcist. Her story leans towards life, duty, and purification. She works under Doman, who ultimately becomes another main antagonist. Even as Sakura tries to preserve order and protect the living, the corruption she faced shows just how fragile that balance is. Together, Utsuki and Sakura embody the internal cycle of Kuon, life and death, purity and corruption, light and darkness. Just as in onmyōdō, neither side can exist without the other. Kuon doesn't populate its world with generic monsters. Its bestiary is a grotesque reinterpretation of Japanese folklore distorted through a nightmare lens. Listen, I'm butchering so much Japanese right now. I am very sorry. That's the best I got. We see Yore, the quintessential Japanese ghost. These spirits are bound to trauma and place, endlessly tied to the manor's walls and halls. They're not cinematic phantoms, they're restless dead who refuse to move on. Then there are the gaki, or hungry ghosts. In Buddhist belief, these are cursed souls of the greedy and corrupt, reduced to emaciated, corpse-feeding wretches. In Kuon, they're not just background lore. You fight them. You even summon them sometimes. The Yamabido are even stranger presences. Folklore paints them as mysterious mountain dwellers, but in Kuon, they become diseased. Miasma-wrapped husks, they even look like zombies. But they carry the weight of spiritual corruption. People consumed by rituals gone wrong. The Mizuhiki lurk in the springs. In real life, Mizuhiki are ceremonial cords tied into decorative knots for births, weddings, and funerals. In the game, that name becomes a cruel pun. They're fish-like horrors that spit acid, transforming something meant for blessing into something monstrous. Other creatures tied directly into the game's central curse. The Adamushi, silkworm-human hybrids born of failed transformations, and the Mashira, violent ape-like beasts echoing odd terms for mountain monkeys. Both connect back to silk, cocoons, and twisted rebirth motive that permeates the story. And then there's the Enyo, a collapsed, blood-spewing monstrosity. It doesn't map directly onto any known yokai, but it reflects the same fear: spiritual corruption given flesh. And finally, through Abe no Saimai, in this game, feminine instead of masculine, Kuon grounds its monsters in authentic practice. Saimai was a legendary onmyōdō. She wields Shikigami familiars like Zenki and Goki, direct callbacks to court sorcery. These aren't just random enemy designs, they're deliberate. Invocations of Japanese spiritual tradition woven into nightmare form. Together, Kuon's monsters aren't a clean translation of folklore. They're a corrupted tapestry, part history, part invention, designed to keep you off balance. The Heian world was constantly shaken by plagues, famine, and natural disaster. With no modern medicine, people often turned to spiritual explanations. Illness and calamity weren't accidents, they were punishment from gods or curses from restless spirits. I'm not even going to try this name. I'm struggling enough as it is. Take the case of an exiled scholar. After his death, Kyoto was struck with lightning storms, fires, and the death of aristocrats. The court believed their vengeful spirit was responsible. Their solution wasn't medicine or politics, it was ritual. They restored his rank, built shrines, and even enshrined him as a deity to pacify his wrath. This mindset sits at the heart of Kuon, the central ritual, intended as an act of restoration to bring life back to silkworms. Instead unleashes death and destruction. In the game, illness, decay, and plague aren't just random events. They're manifestations of a corrupted ritual. That's the cycle Kuon enforces. Rebirth through silk, death through corruption, an endless loop of ritual failure. From a thematic standpoint, it aligns perfectly with both Buddhist impermanence and Shinto purification, the two systems that recognize death and rebirth as inescapable constants. What makes Kuon uniquely haunting isn't just its monsters. It's the way folklore permeates every corner of its atmosphere. It isn't horror built on jump scares or shock value, it's horror drawn from inevitability. The Fujiwara mansion isn't just a haunted house, it's a stage for endless ritual. A liminal space where life and death blur together. To Heian audiences, the fear wasn't in the dark corners, it was the idea that rituals might fail and the world would collapse into chaos. Every element reinforces this. The puzzles, the silk cocoons feel like corrupted echoes of real Shinto and Buddhist practices. The sound design, too, evokes oral folklore, the silence, the chanting, the faint rustle of silk. It builds to a sense of dread long before anything jumps out at you. Playing Kuon feels less like engaging with a horror video game and more like being drawn into a living folktale. And, like any true folktale, you don't win. You don't conquer the horror. You simply just become part of the cycle. Yes, Kuon is rare, but rarity isn't why it deserves to be remembered. Its true importance lies in how deeply it draws from Japanese superstition and lore. Other horror games touch on folklore, but few do so with this level of commitment, and almost none from this time period. After all this time, the fears that shaped Kuon haven't vanished. They've lingered, shifting into new forms, waiting in the margins of horror storytelling. Have you played this gem? And if so, did you manage to be as lost as I did my first time going through it? Either way, thank you for watching, and as always, stay scared, stay curious.